How many of you remember your first Christmas as husband and wife? Probably all should raise your hand just to be safe. Wasn't it fun? And you remember thinking, this is going to be awesome. I have a woman or a man. I'm going to have presents. That was something else. I'm going to have presents. We're going to have food. I got a wife that can cook. I don't have to depend on anybody else. And then what you realize is probably what Sarah and I realized, and that is that, oh my goodness, now there's two families. There's more presents to be bought. There's more places to go. We've got to navigate whose house we're going to go to. Some of you, that might be this year, good luck. And we're navigating where we're going to go and how long we're going to be there and whose family gets more of a priority, or if you have multiple families in that mix, and all of these questions. And then you look at each other and you're stressed out because she went and bought all the presents in the store and you were thinking just one, and there's just confusion and chaos. And you thought, this was going to be amazing. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the first Christmas, the first holiday can be a little crazy. But as we learn, as we navigate that, we realize, hopefully some of you more seasoned, that it's actually one of the more special times if you can learn how to navigate. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the ways to navigate your Christmas. That's not what this is about. But what I thought about was there was this couple. You may have heard their story, you may not. They've known each other since they were, as long as they could remember, really. They decided to get married, they got engaged, and something crazy happened. They found out that she was pregnant, but it wasn't his kid. Yeah, a little crazy. But he decided, you know what? I love her, and we're going to work through this. So they moved forward with the engagement and ultimately with the wedding. They had to embark on a journey to head back to his hometown. And so they took a 90-mile journey. And along the way, they experienced some heartache, some trouble. In fact, throughout the rest of their days, they experienced trouble. In the early days, it was trust issues. Then they had challenges. They had blended family issues. They had to navigate an unexpected situation and circumstance that drew them into trouble when what they thought was going to be nothing but joy. Of course, the couple I'm talking about is Mary and Joseph, the mother and father of Jesus. What a story. What's interesting is their journey, particularly in those first few weeks, actually remind us of a few principles of marriage that are really helpful. So I want to share those with you quickly. Here's the first one. Trust God. Trust God. Remember, Mary was alone in the field, just minding her business, and all of a sudden an angel appeared to her and tells her this crazy story that she's going to become pregnant by the Holy Spirit. And she's going to birth the Son of God and raise the Son of God. And you know what her response was after hearing all of this? It goes like this. Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. If this is what you want me to do, this is what I'll do. Now, there is nobody in this room signing up for that job. I can assure you that. What a situation. To trust God through that doesn't make sense. It's one thing I've learned the longer I've lived, which isn't very long. Life just seems to get more difficult at times. In fact, it doesn't seem to go the way I plan. In fact, it seems like every time I make a plan, it goes the other way. So sometimes I just want to stop planning. But that's life. Sometimes in your marriage, in your family, it doesn't go the way you plan. What you thought would be great and joyful and joyous turns into struggle, trials, difficulty. And I think about this when we say trust God. God knew what he was doing when he picked two teenagers to birth the Son of God. Mary would have been anywhere from 12 to 16 years old. If you have a kid that old, this story rocks you even differently. And yet God trusted the Son of God, the one we'll still talk about and we'll celebrate in the months to come and in the years to come, and trusted them with this. It made no sense, but there was something bigger at play. In fact, it's interesting. When God wants to grow our faith, He grows it by stretching us beyond what we can handle so that we have to trust in Him. But then when He's faithful to provide, we can look back and say, if God got us through that, He can get us through this. There's a lot of our seasoned couples here that they could say story after story like that. Hey, when we got married, we were broke. We lived in a shack. Maybe, I don't know if that's true. We lived in a shack. We lost a child. We lost a job. We went through season we didn't expect. But as God stretched us and as we trusted Him, it wasn't easy. And sometimes you have to look back and remember, but we're able to look back and see that as we trusted God, He was faithful to provide. That's how our faith grows. It would be easy if we could just wake up, hit a button, and our faith is stronger. But the truth is, the only way it's tested is if it's tested beyond what we can handle. Trust God. Number 2 is trust your spouse. Trust your spouse. Here's Joseph's perspective. But as he, Joseph, considered these things, thinking about his fiancée becoming pregnant by someone else, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. First, Joseph had to trust God too. But then he had to trust that Mary was part of the plan in which God was moving forward. That was a big ask. This is an unbelievable situation. Can you imagine being Joseph just for a moment? What a crazy circumstance. And yet, what did he do? He said, well, first I trust God, but I want to trust my spouse. And I hope that maybe even in our time together, we've been able to continue to develop that mindset of each other. That as we've learned a little bit about each other, we can understand how we're wired a little bit. We can see where God has blessed us with a spouse, when if we could be honest, maybe we weren't thinking about that every week. One of the great things about date night is simply makes us talk. Some of you are like, that's what I don't like about it, actually. But it's one of the best things, because for most of us, and I'm only saying what you've told me, for most of us, if it weren't for this place, this time together, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the conversations that we've had since we've been here or on the way home. And I know, I apologize. Some of you had some wild card ride home, some conversations on the way home. I get it. I'm sorry, but not sorry, all right? You're welcome. The truth is, though, that's the beauty of it. And so we trust our spouse, but a lot of times the reason we don't trust our spouse is because maybe we're not communicating and maybe we're not listening. Maybe we're not listening. I think for fun, let's just have a fun. I don't want to get too deep. Let's have a fun example here. Maybe your wife does go buy a bunch of presents. And I would advise you, before you turn into Frosty and have a meltdown every step you take, you might consider, save that for later. You might consider asking the question, why? Why does she do that? Why is she buying those gifts? Of course, there could be some negative things, but hopefully it's because she really cares about people. And giving a gift is her way of saying, I care. And I don't know about you, but I want my wife to care about people like that. She does, by the way. I'm not saying you don't. That's a good thing. Now, of course, there's some balance. Guys, don't freak out, all right? I'm not saying she can buy whatever she wants. But I'm just saying when we talk about things like that and we get to the bottom, it helps us. On the other hand, some of you guys, or maybe ladies, you might be kind of like Grinch at Christmas time. You're not buying any of that. You're buying one gift, right? And so there's a balance there. I remember when Sarah and I got married, we had two very different family experiences when it came to presents. Her family, they bought 3 presents. They bought a gift that they needed, a gift that they wanted, and a gift that brought them closer to God. When I was growing up, my mom bought as many gifts as she possibly could to where they were throwing up out of the Christmas tree. And it was just, sorry, that was a bad example, but they were coming out of the Christmas tree. It was just a totally different family dynamic and experience. So as you can imagine, I grew up being a gift giver and receiver because that's how I grew up. But for her, it was very different. In fact, on one of our first Christmases together before we were married or engaged or any of that, I gave her a lot of gifts. doesn't matter how many, a whole bag full of gifts. And she wanted me to keep them in my car because she didn't know how her parents would respond to that many gifts. It was so contrary to how they grew up. Now, is that true? Did I lie? Oh, okay. I usually don't lie about negative things. I mean, anyways. But what's funny is when we understood each other, how we grew up, we understood why we were that way, it made more sense. And so maybe for some of us listening will help us to trust each other better. That's just a little tip. Number 3, we have to remember that love can, key word, can grow in difficult circumstances. When Joseph woke up from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and he took Mary as his wife. Unbelievable circumstance, yet he said, okay, I'll do it. I will go. Now, for us, the key word there is can. Because you and I can go through a bunch of difficult circumstances and not learn a thing, and not grow at all. We can fight the challenges, we can fight the problems, we can fight God, get mad at each other, and never truly experience the growth He intended for us to have. And so it's important to remember that in our difficult circumstances, it is learning to appreciate and to see God in those difficulties that allows us to truly take steps forward. And so maybe for this Christmas, maybe for some of us it's going to be different. Maybe this year we lost someone. Maybe it's a relative, a parent, grandparent, maybe even a child. This holiday is going to be different. Maybe it's finances. How we've approached Christmas in the past is going to be very different this year. Maybe it's marriage problems. Maybe it's infidelity. Maybe it's just separation. Maybe it's just a lacking. It could be a wayward child that we just can't seem to get our, not hands around, but we can get a grasp of. And it's going to make the holidays a little different. Maybe it's a blended family, and it's a journey as you're continuing to try to bring two families together. It's possible that this year may look different for you. I just want to remind you, it's in those difficult moments when we allow God to do His work that we can really see Him come to life. And so for those of you in difficult times, be encouraged. Can't promise they're going to just disappear, but I can promise you that God will walk you through it. And that's an important thing to hang on to, especially during the holidays. Another thing is to be a team. Mary and Joseph would take off on this journey for 90 miles on camelback, most likely. Most ladies don't even fly when they're pregnant. She rode a camel for 90 miles. Most people don't even drive 90 miles, let's be honest, in a week. This was a journey. But they did it. You know how they did it? God's strength and as a team. They did it together. And, sometimes at the holidays, more for you younger couples, we look at our spouse and we think, she doesn't make those cookies like Grandma did. Or that just think that, by the way. Don't ever say that. Just think that. But you might have that thought, she doesn't make the casserole that way, or the turkey or ham or prime rib, whatever you eat. And you might look at him and you might say, well, he doesn't hang the lights like my dad used to. I remember those days, hanging out with Dad in the front yard and and the truth is sometimes what happens, we get kind of sucked into the old days, so we forget that part of being a team is creating our own new traditions. One of the great things about the holidays is getting to create your own space and your own things that you do. And we're a diverse group here, so let me say this to everyone. One of the great challenges is the cutoff. It's the cutoff. It's deciding when you as a young couple kind of begin to do your own thing. Doesn't mean family's not apart. Okay, I see some of the older ones going, wait a minute, reel it back in. But there is a moment when you become your own thing and you start your own traditions, and maybe that time with family is a little bit shorter. But also for our more seasoned couples to remember that you probably had that too. And so sometimes we got to let go of the little ones a little bit and let them, if they're 16, don't let them go, okay? They stay the whole time. They do whatever you tell them. But if they're married now and doing their thing, it may be time to kind of ease up a little bit so that they can start their own traditions, because you probably remember those with yourself. But being a team at the holidays. Don't tell your mom you're going to their house without talking to your spouse first. Because she probably did the same thing in the other room. And you're going to get together and realize we're going to be in two places at once at 3 o'clock, and somebody's going to be mad because somebody's going to get let down. Also, a little advice. This is just helpful. You might consider, because I think finances are always something we have to keep in mind. You might consider getting a Visa, like a prepaid card, and put on that the amount you want to spend at Christmas, and put all the other cards away. I'm being serious. It's a helpful tool to think about, because a lot of times we end up just kind of going crazy and we get off on all these things. But you might decide on a prepaid amount together, an idea of being a team. I think that could be helpful. Here's the last thing. This is the most important. Look for the stable. Look for the stable. Luke 2, verse 7. And she, Mary, gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. I don't think there's a mother on the planet that desires to birth their child in the stable. And I know for a fact there is no man on the planet, and definitely not in this room, that wants to experience that. And you may go, that doesn't sound bad. It does when you realize you're the one doing all the work and not passing out in the corner like you did at the hospital. It's a different world. There's not a single person that would want to experience that. But you know what happened? As Mary and Joseph went through this trial, you know what they found in the darkness? They found a blessing. And in fact, it's the same blessing that we're still celebrating this year at Christmas. It's Jesus. And so when I say point to the stable, I just want to give you this thought. If you did nothing else this Christmas, this holiday, Thanksgiving, all the above, if the only thing we did was try in our families, maybe starting in our personal life, to lift Jesus a little bit higher, it would be a successful holiday. Because the truth is, there's not a single one of us, and starting with me, that has him raised high enough in our personal lives and in our family. He is the only thing that matters. And for those of you with young kids, this may be the most important thing you do, is to train your kiddos on what it means to celebrate Christmas, Christmas. Not Presentmas, I'm going to stop there because it's going to get out of hand. Lifting Jesus up just a little bit higher. We don't need to make crazy goals. We're going to change everything we do. But just think about a way you could lift him up a little bit. People ask all the time, what does it really mean? What does it really mean to put Christ at the center of your marriage? You probably heard it at your wedding. You heard some guy get up and say, if you'll do that, everything will be great. And you walk and you go, oh, that's great. Then you walk in and go, oh, what does that even mean? How do you do that? Here's how. If Christ is at the center of your life as an individual, and at the center of your spouse's life as an individual, he'll be at the center of your marriage. The only way Christ can be the center of a marriage is if he's the center of your life. So what does that mean? It means every decision you make, every act you make, everything you say, everything you think within reason is through the lens of what would Christ do? How would Christ do this? What kind of decision would Christ make in this moment? How would Christ act in this moment? That's how we keep him at the center. The only way to center a marriage on Christ is to center your life on him. So, as we think about the holidays, we might think about just raising him up a little bit higher. What does that mean? Well, for some of you, maybe you might go to church for the first time at Christmas. I'd encourage that. That'd be great. Others of you might decide to spend a little extra time with the kiddos, helping them to understand the Christmas story on a level they could understand. Maybe for some, it's to reevaluate how many presents you do and try to maybe take some of those gifts and give them away and teach your kids what it's like to serve and to be grateful for what you have. I don't want to tell you what to do. I just want to give you ideas. But at the end of the day, I hope that we could see raising Christ up just a little bit is the key. So, as we leave, I want to say this. If it's the last time we're ever together, here's what I want you to hear. Everything we've done here, has been centered on one thing. Guess what? It's on Christ. Listen, the reason we're here is not because I like to hear myself talk. I do talk a lot, but I don't like listening to it. It is not about me. It's not about the tadlocks and the games. It's not about your table or good food, though all that looks great. It's been about Jesus. Ultimately, it's been because this church loves you. It loves you, and it loves your marriage. And we've gone too long letting marriage be on the back burner. And it was important that we made a change, and our church stepped up to the plate. But we did it because Christ's love is what was motivating us. In fact, without Christ, all of this is for nothing. And the truth is, in your life, without Christ, it may not be for nothing, but you're going to miss what it's all about. And so at the end of the day, that's the most important decision you could ever make. It's the most important question you could wrestle with. Who is God? Who is He to me? Who is He in my life? And I just pray, if you have not done that, that you might. I'm not going to do an invitation or anything. I want to lay that out there for you. Because some of you are trying really hard to make your marriage work. If He's not at the center, it's going to be an uphill battle. But man, if you'll start there, everything can begin to slowly fall into place. Some of us, it's taken that relationship with Christ to another level. And hopefully through the time we spent together and the teaching and the talking and the discussion, you might realize, man, if we could work on ourselves first and move a little closer to the Lord, maybe some of this stuff might click. Maybe some of this might come together. Jesus is the most important decision we'll ever wrestle with. And I pray tonight, if there's anybody here that hasn't wrestled with that, you might try to do that tonight. Man, we love you guys. I pray that you've been blessed. If not by all, at least by some of the things we've done in this time together, even if tonight was your first night. Look forward to a new year, but at the end of the day, after we finish here, when we leave, just remember, it's Christ at the center that drives everything. And if you can get that right, I can't promise perfect marriage and a happy family and all of that, but I can promise you this, you'll never be alone. And any struggle or difficulty you try to wrestle with, you'll have that much more strength and guidance because the Lord is walking with you. That's our prayer, and that's what we hope you'll hear while also developing and growing your marriage in our time together.